Good morning, girls, and welcome to our first day of online learning. I am hoping to keep these lessons short and sweet, under 15 minutes, and provide you with some practice to make sure that you're doing the skills that we're reviewing online correctly. And we will also have some time to meet through Google Meet so that you can ask me individual questions and get some feedback as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first lesson today, which is the fundamental counting principle and factorials. So before you begin this lesson, I want to make sure that you've already printed out the guided notes provided for you so that you'll be able to follow along and annotate as you see things pop up on your screen. Okay, so I am providing you with the definition here of what we call the fundamental counting principle. And I'm just going to read the definition aloud to you and you can kind of follow along. But this says that if there are n items and m sub 1 ways to choose the first item, m sub 2 ways to choose the second item after the first item has been chosen, and so on, then there are m sub 1 times m sub 2 times m sub 3 times, we can go on forever, m sub n ways to choose the item. So this might not make total sense in the definition form, so that's why I'm providing you with an example. So let's run through this example together and apply this counting principle. So we have a menu board up here about a lunch special, and the question says, for the lunch special you can choose an entree, a drink, and one side dish. And we want to know how many different meal choices there are. So probably in middle school you probably made tree diagrams and came up with a bunch of different combinations, or what we call permutations, of different lunch specials that you could get. And we're going to kind of simplify that here so that we're not needing to draw out tree diagrams anymore. And so the way that you can set this up is that you take a look at your entree items, right? So if I look over at the chart, I can see that I have 3 ways to choose an entree. So I'm going to write the number 3 down. And then I need to choose a drink. So if I look at the drinks, it looks like there are 4 drinks. So I'm going to write a 4 over here. And then one side dish. So the side dishes over here, it looks like we have 3 side dishes. So I look at the number of choices I have in each category, and according to that fundamental counting principle, I'm going to multiply these numbers together. So I can multiply 3 times 4 times 3, and I should get an answer of 36. So there are 36 different choices that we could pick based on this menu board. All right, let's run through one more example together, a little bit more complicated, but using the same fundamental counting principle. Okay, so in Utah, a license plate consists of 3 digits followed by 3 letters. And they tell us that the letters I, O, and Q are not used, and each digit or letter may be used more than once. So we want to know how many different license plates are possible. So if you can kind of envision this license plate, right? They're telling us that we can have 3 digits, and then we can have 3 letters after it. So I'm just going to use A, B, and C just to show that. So basically we have 6 slots available for either a number or for a letter. And then remember that they tell us that I, O, and Q cannot be used. So we know there are 26 letters in the alphabet, but we can't use I, O, and Q. So that leaves us with only 23 letters that can be used. And then with our numbers, we know the digits range from 0 through 9. So that would give us 10 different digit options. So we're going to use this counting principle. So for my first spot, which is a digit, that would be, I have 10 choices. My second spot, I have another 10 choices because I can reuse numbers, right? It says that the digit or letter may be used more than once. And then I have another 3rd digit that I need to choose. And then now I have letters. So remember, we have 23 letters to choose from. So that's going to be 23, 23, and 23. And that fundamental counting principle says that we're going to multiply all these numbers together. You can see why this is better than using a tree diagram, because you're going to see in just a minute, after typing in these numbers into your calculator, that there are in fact 12,167,000 different license plate options to choose from. So that would be your final answer there. All right, well, let's move down to the last skill that we're going to look at. Oh no, I'm sorry, we have one more example. Here we go, letter C. All right, make your own adventure. All right, so this is a make your own adventure story that lets you choose 6 starting points, gives 4 plot choices, and then has 5 possible endings. How many adventures are there? So I want you to pause the video and see if you can come up with your answer on your own, and then you can hit unpause and we can check our answers together. Okay, so excuse me, with your make your own adventure, we have a starting point, we have the plot, and then we have an ending. So in the starting, they tell us that there are 6 possible starting points, there are 4 plot choices, and there are 5 possible endings. And then again, remember that fundamental counting principle, we're going to be multiplying these numbers together. So we get a final answer of 120 different adventures that you could possibly have. All right. And finally, let's bump down to our last skill that we're going to talk about on this video today. Sorry, I'm scrolling, but I'm having a little problem controlling it. All right, n factorial. So the factorial of a number is the product of all the natural numbers less than or equal to that number. So you have seen it written as a number with an exclamation point behind it. So I put an example here in this green box here with 8 exclamation point, which really means to multiply 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And if I put that all in the calculator, I get an answer of 40,320. And then I did write it algebraically for you so that there is, if we don't know what the number is, it's going to be that number, and then you would start with that number, and then you would take 1 away, take 2 away, take 3 away, etc., until you got down to 1. So let's just do a few practices with this, because this is going to come in handy tomorrow when we look at permutations and combinations. Okay, so our example of 6 factorial, or a really excited 6, you are going to multiply 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And then you can just plug that all into your calculator, and hopefully you come up with an answer of 720. All right, so why don't you pause the video and you can go ahead and see if you can calculate part B on your own. Okay, so if this is 4 factorial, you're going to multiply 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and you should get an answer of 24. All right, let's look at C together, because now we are involving a little bit of some division here as well. So if I have 2 factorial divided by 6 factorial, you're just going to write out what this means using our factorial notation. So 2 factorial would mean 2 times 1, and then I have 6 factorial, which is 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And then one thing you can do is you could cross out your 2 and your 1, because if you have a 2 divided by 2, that gives you 1, so that simplifies, and then obviously the 1 simplify. So then what you're left with is 1 over, and then you could multiply 6 times 5 times 4 times 3, and you get an answer of 360. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and you do number or letter D on your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and write this out. So 9 factorial would be 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And then 7 factorial would be 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And then we are going to do some cancellation. So if this 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is the same on the top and same on the bottom, we can cross all of those out. So then we're just left with 8 and 9. So 9 times 8 gives us an answer of 72. So that would be our final answer there. All right, so that does it for our lesson today. I have sent you each an email with an explanation of how to find the exercises that you're going to practice on IXL and the different skills. So it's the counting principle and the factorials. So look for an email from me with your username and password, and again, those 2 different skills that you're going to be practicing for homework today. All right, thanks so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.